My name is Nora Callahan. I am 32 years old and I fix things for a living. Not relationships, not feelings, not the general brokenness of the human condition. I mean actual things. Boilers, water heaters, cracked radiators. The kind of machinery that most people never think about until it fails them at 11 o'clock on a January night. I work for a mid-sized heating and plumbing company in Portland, Oregon, and I am the only woman on the crew. I stopped noticing that a long time ago. The pipes don't care who holds the wrench. My apartment is on the 3rd floor of an old building on Burnside, and I like it because it makes no noise I haven't already identified and categorized. The elevator groans on the left cable. The hallway radiator clicks 3 times before it settles. The woman downstairs, Mrs. Pendleton, watches nature documentaries at a volume that suggests her hearing aids are merely decorative. These are known sounds. Known sounds don't bother me. I am not exactly what people picture when they imagine someone being set up on a blind date. My hands are usually clean by evening, but they have the particular roughness that no amount of lotion reverses. I wear my hair back so it stays out of my face at work, and I forget to take it down when I leave. I own 3 pairs of jeans and 1 dress, which I have worn exactly twice. Once to my cousin Ellen's wedding, and once to a funeral where I did not know the deceased well enough to cry. My friend Judith set me up. Judith is the kind of person who genuinely believes that everyone's life would improve if they simply found the right person to share it with. She is not wrong exactly, but she applies this belief with the enthusiasm of someone installing a smoke alarm the morning after a house fire. She told me about a man named Daniel Rhee, 35, a freelance architectural photographer who had recently moved back to Portland from Seoul after a long-term relationship ended. She said he was quiet, thoughtful, a little inside his own head. "Perfect," she said. "You're both terrible at small talk. You'll skip right to the good stuff." I was not convinced, but I agreed. Dinner, Saturday, 7:30, a Thai place called Siam Garden on Morrison Street. I got there at 7:20, which is when I arrive at everything. I sat in a booth by the window, ordered water, and watched the street. Portland in October is a particular shade of gray that I find genuinely beautiful, though I would never say so out loud. The leaves on the sidewalk were wet and orange. A man with an umbrella that wasn't working properly kept trying to fix it while also walking and failing at both. 7:30 came, 7:40, 7:51. I checked my phone. Nothing from Judith, nothing from a number I didn't recognize. I looked around the restaurant. A family of 4 sharing a single enormous platter of pad thai. 2 women laughing hard enough that one of them had tears on her face. An elderly man eating alone, very slowly and with great concentration, as though the meal deserved his full attention. I thought, 15 more minutes, and I am ordering something and going home. At 7:53, a man walked in. He was maybe 5'11", dark-haired, wearing a gray jacket that had seen a lot of weather. He had a camera bag over one shoulder and was holding the hand of a boy who was perhaps 9 or 10, wearing a backpack so large it looked like the boy was being slowly consumed from behind. The man scanned the room. His eyes found me. I watched him absorb the fact that the woman he was supposed to meet was already looking at him with an expression that he probably correctly interpreted as, "You are 23 minutes late." He crossed the room. The boy came with him, backpack and all. "You're Nora," he said. It was not quite a question. "You're Daniel," I said, same tone. "Yes." He sat down across from me. The boy slid in beside him. "I'm sorry. I know I owe you an explanation. This is Leo." Leo looked at me with the seriousness of someone twice his age. He had Daniel's dark eyes and a constellation of small freckles across his nose that seemed unlikely given his Asian heritage and entirely charming. He was wearing a t-shirt with a diagram of a blue whale on it, labeled with anatomical terms I recognized, because I had once, during a slow week, read a book about marine biology purely by accident. "Hi, Leo," I said. He said nothing. He looked at Daniel. Daniel said something to him, not in English, not exactly, a gesture layered with quiet. And I realized, a half-second later, that what he had done was not speak but sign. Leo's hands moved back. Daniel turned to me. He says hello. He's shy at first, and he asked me to tell you that he didn't want to come, but now he thinks maybe it's okay. I looked at Leo. "Why, maybe." Daniel relayed the question. Leo's hands moved again. His expression did not change, but there was something precise and intentional in the motion of his fingers, the same quality I associate with people who are very good at their job. He says your hands look like you know how to do things. He says most people's hands look soft. I looked down at my own hands for a moment. Calluses at the base of each finger. A faint scar across the left thumb from a misplaced wrench 6 years ago. A bruise forming at the knuckle of my right index finger where I had caught it on a pipe joint 3 days earlier. He's right, I said. Something shifted slightly in Leo's face. Daniel pressed his palms flat on the table, a gesture that looked like someone setting down something heavy. His mother dropped him off today. She was supposed to take him until Sunday. She left him at the coffee shop where we usually do the handoff and sent me a text saying she needed more time. I've been his emergency contact since March. I couldn't leave him with anyone on this short notice, and I didn't want to cancel without explaining in person. He paused. I almost didn't come, but I thought you deserved more than a canceled message from a stranger. I considered this. What does he usually do when something unexpected happens? I asked. Daniel looked surprised by the question. He signed it to Leo. Leo's response was quick, economical. He solves a different problem, Daniel said. He's been teaching himself to draft architectural plans on graph paper by hand. Smart, I said. I picked up the menu. Does he like curry? I would like to say that the rest of the evening was easy. It was not exactly. It was the kind of evening that requires attention. Not performance, but presence. Daniel was quiet in the way that some people are quiet because they have learned that speaking without thinking is a form of waste. He had a particular habit of pausing before answering a question, not because he was unsure, but because he was making sure the answer was accurate. I found this almost unbearably restful. He told me about Seoul, about the photography work he had done there, industrial spaces, mostly, factories, and transit hubs and construction sites, the beautiful geometry of function. He said he came home to Portland because his mother was getting older and because Leo's school had a program that was very good, and because when he stood on a street in Seoul at 2 a.m, he kept thinking about the particular quality of light on the Willamette River and couldn't remember why he had left. I told him about plumbing, which is not a subject that typically captivates people at dinner tables. He listened in the same way Leo studied the radiator, as though the thing I was describing had a skeleton worth finding. When Leo fell asleep in the booth beside him, his head against Daniel's arm, Daniel looked down at him for a moment with an expression that I didn't have a word for immediately, and then recognized. It was the expression of someone who has made a decision they are no longer uncertain about. I should get him home, Daniel said. Yes, I said. I'm sorry again, about the timing. You showed up, I said, and you were honest about why you were late. He looked at me. Most people would have left. I'm not most people, I said. My hands give it away. He smiled. It was a small smile, careful, but it reached his eyes. I should explain something about Daniel Rhee. He's the kind of person who builds things carefully and abandons them reluctantly. This applies to photographs, to relationships, and to the explanations he eventually offers when pressed. He told me, over the following weeks, the easier parts first. The photography business, slow in Portland but steady. The apartment in Northwest, large enough for Leo to have his own space during his custody weeks. The work he had done in Seoul, which had been good work but solitary in a way that had eventually become unsustainable. He did not tell me, not for a long time, about Leo's mother. Her name was Christine. She and Daniel had met in their mid-20s, had Leo at 26, and had spent the 3 years following Leo's diagnosis rebuilding themselves around a grief that neither of them had expected to feel, and neither of them knew how to share with the other. Christine's grief expressed itself as anger, at hospitals, at Daniel, at the particular cruelty of chance. Daniel's grief expressed itself as silence and overcompensation, which is perhaps its own form of anger. They separated when Leo was 5. They shared custody on a schedule that worked for 2 years in the way that carefully negotiated arrangements work. Not well, but adequately. Then Christine began struggling in ways that scheduling could not accommodate. Weeks would go by, Leo would be returned late, or not at all. Once, Daniel arrived at Christine's apartment for the handoff to find Leo sitting on the front steps with his backpack. alone, having waited for 40 minutes with a patience that broke something in Daniel that has not fully healed. He got temporary emergency custody in March. The arrangement was that Christine could visit on a supervised schedule while she stabilized. She was not, as far as Daniel knew, a bad person. She was a person who had been swallowed by something and could not yet find the surface. He told me all of this on a Sunday afternoon in November, sitting on the floor of my apartment while I reassembled a section of pipe that connected my bathroom sink to the wall. He had come to fix a shelf. He had offered, and I had let him, because I appreciated that he needed to contribute something tangible, and because the shelf was genuinely crooked. He told it in the same way he did everything. Slowly, accurately, without ornamentation. He watched my hands on the pipe fitting while he talked, as though the work gave him somewhere to direct the words. When he finished, I tightened the last connector and sat back on my heels. "You blamed yourself," I said, "for the 17 days. He was quiet. "It wasn't your fault," I said. "A bacterial infection can move fast. Anyone could have missed it." "I was a faster reader," he said. "Of the situation. I should have pushed sooner." "You got him there," I said. "He's okay." "He's more than okay," Daniel said. It was not a correction, exactly, more like a clarification that mattered to him. "Yes," I said. "He is." I put the pipe wrench down and looked at Daniel. He was still looking at my hands. "Leo thinks you're remarkable," he said. "He signs about you after your visits. He says you explain things without making them smaller." "He does the same thing," I said. Daniel finally looked up. "I know you didn't sign up for this," he said. "Any of it. The custody situation, the school handoffs, the fact that I sometimes cancel at the last minute because something happens. I know it's complicated." "Daniel," I said, "I don't want to overstate what this is," he said. I want you to know what you're getting into if this continues." "I'm a plumber," I said. "I specialize in complicated systems." He stared at me. "I don't mean Leo," I added quickly. I mean that I don't walk away from things because they have moving parts. If I did, I'd have a very short career." A pause. Something settled in his face. "Okay," he said. "Okay," I said. He went back to the shelf. I went back to the sink. Outside, the November rain had started on the windows, and the building made all its known sounds, and for the first time in a long time, the silence between the sounds felt like something I did not need to fill. I started learning sign language in December. I did not make an announcement about it. I downloaded an app and worked through the alphabet on my lunch breaks, sitting in my truck with a thermos of coffee and the heater running and my hands moving in the small space between the steering wheel and the windshield. By the second week, I had moved past the alphabet into vocabulary. By the third week, I was practicing sentences. Leo noticed before Daniel did. It was a Sunday, the first time I tried. Leo and Daniel had come to help me move a piece of furniture, a bookshelf that had been leaning against my wall at a 15-degree angle for 4 months. After we finished, Leo sat at my kitchen table with his notebook while Daniel made tea. I sat down across from Leo and, very carefully, signed, "I am learning. I am slow. Please be patient." My grammar was almost certainly wrong. My hand shape on patient was definitely wrong. Leo put his pen down and stared at me. Then he signed, slowly and clearly, 3 words. "Daniel, from the kitchen." He says, "Why are you?" I signed back, slowly. "Because you are worth talking to." Leo looked at me for a long time. His expression did not change immediately. It changed the way weather changes, gradually and then all at once. His eyes went bright, and he looked down at his notebook, and he started drawing again, very fast, with the particular intensity of someone who needs to do something with their hands, because their face is doing something they didn't authorize. Daniel appeared in the doorway. He had seen the exchange. He was holding 2 mugs of tea and not moving. I looked at him. "Your grammar is better than mine," I said, "but mine will improve." He set the mugs down carefully. He sat beside me. He did not say anything for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yes." "When did you decide?" I thought about this. "First dinner?" I said. When he said my hands look like I know how to do things, I thought, this kid deserves someone who takes the trouble to speak his language. And then I thought, if I'm going to be around, and I wanted to be around, then that's something I need to do. Daniel was quiet. I know it's still early, I said. Between us. I know that. I'm not making claims about... No, he said. No, that's not... He stopped. Tried again. No one has ever, in 3 years, taken the actual time to... Then they were not paying attention, I said. Leo is exceptional. That's not a difficult conclusion to reach. Leo, without looking up from his notebook, signed something. Daniel made a sound that was not quite a laugh. He says you're both embarrassing him and that his curry from last time was better than the tea you're offering Daniel. He's not wrong, I said. I should invest in better tea. It was a Tuesday in February when everything got complicated. Daniel had a shoot that morning, a warehouse conversion in the Pearl District, the kind of industrial meets residential project that paid well and interested him aesthetically. Leo had a half day at school. The plan was that Leo would take the bus to Daniel's apartment after dismissal and wait there. The plan, as plans do, changed. I was on a job in Northeast Portland, lying under a sink that had a leak in a fitting that should have been replaced years ago, when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Christine, Daniel's ex. I need to talk to someone. Leo is with me. I don't know what I'm doing. Please don't call Daniel yet. I read it twice. Then I read it a third time. I did not do what she asked. I texted Daniel first. Christine has Leo. She texted me. I'm going. I sent the address she'd included in a follow-up message. Then I texted Christine. On my way. Don't go anywhere. Leo needs to see familiar faces. I was there in 14 minutes. A coffee shop on Alberta, one of those wide-windowed places that stays warm even in February. I pushed through the door and scanned the room. Christine was easy to find. She had Leo's same dark hair and an expression that looked like someone trying to hold a house of cards together in a wind. Leo was beside her, his backpack on the table in front of him, drawing in his notebook with the concentrated focus of a child who is not looking at the person next to him because he is waiting for something to resolve. He looked up when I walked in. Something in his body changed. Not relief exactly, but a recognition that the situation had altered. I signed, I'm here. You okay? He signed back, precisely. She showed up at school. I didn't know what to do. I came with her because she was crying. I signed, good decision. You did right. He held my eyes for a moment, then went back to drawing. I sat across from Christine. Up close, she looked like someone who had not slept properly in weeks. Not dangerous, not malicious, exhausted in the specific way of people who have been carrying something alone. Thank you for coming, she said. Of course, I said. I know you don't know me. No, I said. But I know Leo. She looked at him. Something in her face cracked slightly and then rearranged. He's not afraid of me, she said, a little uncertainly, as though this surprised her. No, I said. Daniel probably told you. Daniel told me what happened. From his perspective. I don't have yours. She blinked. Most people who care about Daniel aren't interested in mine. Leo has 2 parents, I said. His situation is better when both of you are doing okay. A long pause. Outside a streetcar went past, its bell ringing twice. I'm not doing okay, she said. I know, I said. What kind of help are you trying to get? She told me. It was halting and non-linear, and some of it was justification and some of it was genuine reckoning, and I did not try to sort them from each other. I just listened, the way I listen to a system that's not working, trying to locate the actual source of the problem before touching anything. By the time Daniel arrived, pale with controlled urgency, Christine had stopped talking and was holding a coffee cup in both hands, like it was a source of heat she was not sure she deserved. Daniel looked at Leo first. Leo signed quickly. She didn't hurt me. She just cried. I didn't know where to go. Daniel crossed to Leo and put a hand briefly on his shoulder. Leo leaned into it, just slightly. Then Daniel looked at Christine. The two of them had the particular careful silence of people who have said everything to each other and are now living in the aftermath. I need help, Christine said. Real help. I know I keep saying that. I know, Daniel said. I don't want to keep doing this to him, she said. She looked at Leo. Leo was watching her face with that same precise attention he gave to buildings, reading the structure beneath the surface. He signed something. Daniel translated, his voice quiet. He says, "I know you're sad. I've been sad too. We can both be sad, and it doesn't have to be bad." Christine put her face in her hands. Not dramatically. Quietly, the way people do when they've been trying to keep their expression under control and have finally stopped. I looked at Leo. He was watching his mother with an expression I cannot fully describe. It was not anger. It was not pity. It was something older and more complicated. The look of someone who has been hurt and has decided that understanding matters more than punishment. He reached across the table and put his hand on his mother's arm. Daniel and I did not make large declarations. That is not who either of us is. We are both, in our separate ways, people who prefer to demonstrate a thing rather than announce it. But there were accumulations, small and specific and meaningful in the way that recurring patterns are meaningful. I started keeping the good tea at my apartment, not for show, for Daniel, who drank it in the morning when he stayed over, standing at my kitchen window looking out at the wet street, with the particular stillness of someone who is comfortable in a space. Daniel started leaving a camera at my apartment. Not his best one, but a good one. One evening he asked if I wanted him to show me how it worked. I said yes. He sat beside me on the couch and explained aperture and shutter speed and the way that light behaves differently depending on the time of day and the direction of the source. His voice when he talked about this was different, more alive, less guarded. I thought, this is what he sounds like when he is not being careful. Leo and I continued our work. He was a demanding teacher. When my sign grammar was wrong, he corrected it with the expression of a professor who has graded the same error too many times to be polite about it. When I got something right, he acknowledged it with a small nod and moved on immediately to the next challenge. He never praised me. He just stopped correcting me eventually on the things I had learned. In April, I helped Daniel build a better partition in Leo's room, proper drywall instead of the curtain that had been doing the job. Leo supervised with architectural opinions, and Daniel and I built it together over 2 Saturdays, working in the specific rhythm of people who are comfortable in shared silence and know how to stay out of each other's way. When we finished, Leo walked the perimeter of the new wall and pressed his palm flat against the surface. He turned and signed to me. I understood enough by then to follow it. You can feel if it's built right. He says good walls don't vibrate. He's right, I said. Leo pressed his palm to the wall one more time. Then he went to his desk and began drawing what I recognized after a moment as the floor plan of the apartment. The original walls and the new one, labeled and dimensioned. Daniel appeared beside me. We stood in the doorway, watching Leo work. He's going to be an architect, Daniel said. Or a structural engineer, I said. He'll probably do both and correct everyone's assumptions about what the difference is. True, I said. A pause. The apartment made its sounds. The refrigerator's hum, the building settling, the particular quiet of a Sunday afternoon in a space where 3 people had been working. Nora, Daniel said. Yes. I need to say something. Okay. I'm not good at this, he said. At saying things directly, I'm better at other kinds of communication. I know, I said, but I think you should know that. He stopped, tried again. When I came into that restaurant in October and you were already looking at me with that expression. What expression? Like you were deciding whether the repair was worth the trouble, he said. I considered this. Fair. I thought, this is someone who doesn't have patience for things that don't work. And I thought, I have to make this count. He paused. And then you talked to Leo about what's inside the walls, and Leo's face did that thing it does when he's paying full attention to something. And I thought, whatever happens with me, I am not walking out of here without finding out if this person is who I think she might be. I looked at him. Who did you think I might be? Someone who sees the skeleton, he said, in things, in people. I was quiet for a moment. You're not wrong, I said. Leo from his desk did not look up, but he signed something. I caught most of it. Daniel translated. He says you 2 are taking forever, and he designed the whole room already. I looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at me. We were both, I think, fighting approximately the same smile. I stepped through the doorway to Leo's desk and looked over his shoulder at the floor plan. It was meticulous. Every wall dimensioned, every doorway marked, and there, in the corner, a small notation beside the new partition I had built. Solid. Tested. Well made. I signed slowly. Thank you. He signed back, without looking up from his drawing. You're welcome. Now stop being slow. By August, the shape of things had changed in ways that were hard to point to exactly and easy to see when you stepped back. Christine was in a structured outpatient program. She was seeing Leo on Sunday afternoons at a park near Daniel's apartment, supervised at first by a caseworker, and then eventually not. The visits were short and careful. Leo did not erase the distance overnight, but he was present in them, attentive in the way he was attentive to everything, reading the situation with those precise dark eyes, deciding how much weight to give it. She brought him a drawing pad once, a good one, spiral-bound with thick paper. He accepted it without ceremony and spent the next Sunday visit showing her the plans he was working on for an imaginary building, a community center, he had decided, with sightlines designed so that deaf visitors could see the main gathering area from every entrance. Christine had looked at it for a long time and then said, through Daniel, that it was the most thoughtful thing she'd ever seen in her life. Leo had signed back. I know. The three of us, Daniel, Leo, and I, had settled into a rhythm. Not the rhythm of people who have always lived together, but the rhythm of people who have chosen to, which is different and in some ways better. Deliberate, renewed, small moment by small moment. I learned over the months that Daniel made coffee the same way every morning, a ritual of small, precise steps that did not appreciate interruption, that Leo would eat almost anything if it was explained to him where it came from and why someone had made the decision to cook it that way, that the three of us could work together in a space without speaking, and it was not uncomfortable, but its own form of communication, the way skilled people on a job site learn each other's rhythms and trust them. I learned that Daniel took photographs of things he was afraid of losing. He had photographs of Leo at every age, an archive that made your chest do something complicated if you looked at it too long. He had photographs of buildings he'd worked in that were later torn down. He had one photograph of his grandmother's kitchen, taken the week before she died, that he had printed large and kept in a folder he did not often open. He took a photograph of my hands one evening, working. He did not ask. He simply raised the camera, and I did not stop him. When I saw it later, my hands around a pipe fitting, the tools spread on the floor, the particular focused quality of someone at work, I understood why he had taken it. It looked like what it was. Someone who knew what they were doing. Someone competent and present and unafraid of difficulty. You make things look like they mean something, I said. They do mean something, he said. That's the whole job. I am not someone who thought a great deal about love before. I was not opposed to it. I simply worked in the present tense, which love does not always occupy. But I have come to think that love, when it is the kind that actually holds, is less a feeling and more a practice. It is the decision, repeated, to pay attention, to learn someone's language, literally in our case, but also the 1,000 other languages that people speak. The language of what they avoid saying, the language of what they do with their hands when they're at ease, the language of how they move in a space they feel safe in. Leo taught me that. He taught me, without intending to, that the willingness to learn a language is already an act of love, that showing up and making the effort, badly, imperfectly, with wrong grammar and clumsy hands, is the thing that matters, not the fluency, the trying. Daniel taught me that quiet is not the same as closed, that some people who say very little are not withholding, but rather careful, that careful, in the right context, is not a barrier. It's a form of respect. I taught them, I think, something about pipes, about how systems that look complicated from the outside have an internal logic, and that if you locate the source of the problem and address it honestly, most things can be repaired, and that the work of repair is not a failure. It is what maintaining anything, house or relationship or self, actually consists of. On a Saturday in late August, we went to the coast. Leo wanted to see the tide pools. He had been researching them for a project and had a list of specific organisms he wanted to observe and document. We drove out in the morning, stopped for coffee and a hot chocolate that Leo inspected with scientific skepticism before accepting. The coast in August was cold and brilliant, the kind of blue that has more gray in it than you expect up close. The tide was going out, and the pools were exposed and full. Leo went ahead of us, notebook in hand, naming things. He knew the Latin for every organism he found. He had memorized them. He showed us, signing rapidly and then pointing at the thing itself. The ochre sea star, the hermit crab negotiating a new shell with businesslike determination, the anemones contracting and releasing in the shallow water. At one point, he held up a piece of shell and signed something to me that I caught almost entirely. I signed back. Yes. Something broke it. The water did. Over a long time. That's how it got smooth. He held the shell for a moment, turned it over in his hands, then put it in his jacket pocket. Daniel was standing beside me. He had his camera, but he wasn't using it. He was just watching Leo, the way he sometimes watched things he didn't want to photograph because the photograph wouldn't hold the whole of it. "What did he ask you?" Daniel said. "He asked why the edge was smooth when it was broken," I said. "What did you tell him?" "That water does it. Over time." Daniel was quiet. "He'll keep the shell," I said. "He keeps things that are broken and still interesting." "He gets that from me," Daniel said. Then, after a pause, "And from you." I looked at him. "You kept us," he said, "when things were complicated and messy and there were many reasons not to. You just kept showing up with better tools." "You were worth the trouble," I said. "Both of you. That's a very fast calculation to make." He looked at me the way he looks at things he is deciding whether to photograph, deciding if the light is right, deciding if it will hold. "I love you," he said. Simple and direct, the way he said very few things. I have known it for a while, I think. Known it the way you know a system is working, not by announcement, but by the absence of problems, by the way everything runs quietly and well, and you stop having to fix it. "I love you too," I said. Leo had moved further along the rocks and had crouched down over a large pool. He did not look back, but a moment later he raised one hand and made a sign without turning around. I had learned that one early. He used it when I got something right. "Good," he signed. Finally. 3 months later, on a Tuesday evening, Leo and I were in his room. He was revising the community center plans. He had decided the main entrance needed to be repositioned, and I was helping him calculate the structural load implications of moving a load-bearing wall. This is not something a 9-year-old should understand. Leo had understood it since July. Daniel was in the kitchen, doing what he did on Tuesday evenings, cooking something slow and good that he had found in a recipe book his grandmother had kept, adapting it to what was available, moving through the ritual of it in that quiet, precise way. At some point, Leo put his pen down and signed to me. I followed it well enough. "Do you think buildings know they're being taken care of?" I considered this. I signed back. "I think they respond to it. Good care keeps them standing." He thought about this. Then, "People are the same." "Yes," I signed. "People are the same." He picked up his pen and went back to the plans. I went back to the load calculation. The apartment held all its known sounds. The kitchen, Daniel moving between counter and stove. The window, the building settling into itself. Leo's hand moved again. A single sign I didn't need translated. "Good." I signed it back to him. "Good."